Welcome back to our conversation about the housing crisis with Lieutenant Governor Kim Driscoll. And Kim, the excellent real estate blog, Streets blog, reported that in Lexington, one of the first communities to vote through a rezoning plan in compliance with the MBTA Communities Act 8 months ago, they still haven't received any applications for new apartment projects in these new zoning districts. What does that tell you?
You know, I was just with Lexington officials who are excited about some of the projects that are bubbling up. There's a number of initiatives downtown, and I think it just goes to show that even with zoning, there are hurdles to building housing. The cost of the labor, the cost of the equipment, getting through a process, even when you have as-of-right zoning, at a time frame when things are costing more. So all the more reason we need to act with, I think, fidelity to try and not only have the zoning passed, but trying to support housing. That's why the Housing Bond Bill, the Affordable Homes Act, we're so excited about it, the largest investment in housing in the Commonwealth's future, tied to trying to develop the type of housing we need, workforce housing, preserving the affordable housing that we have in communities, and then working to incentivize getting projects off the bench so we can get things built and have the type of homes that we need, driving down the cost in all of our communities.
You mentioned the bond bill, which of course is enables borrowing by the state. This is a little technical, but I want to ask you, I'm also hearing that the Mass Housing, the state agency that is the primary state developer of new housing, is pushing up against its debt ceiling. And if that debt ceiling isn't lifted, projects that are in the pipeline are going to stall out. Are you going to lift the debt ceiling?
Well, volume cap is something that we work on with our federal officials. That's a target we have, and we've made that really clear. We also, as part of this new housing bond bill, will reauthorize some of the opportunities to make sure we're fully capitalized, including a program that's known as the Mass Momentum Fund. Like, we can't subsidize our way out of the challenges when it comes to housing. How do we think about taking equity, a capital stack, to try and, again, incentivize projects that are already permitted? We have an array of units that have permitted, gone through the gauntlet of permitting, and now we want to get them off the bench under construction. How do we think about unlocking barriers to some of the potential we have for housing? It's all built into this housing bond bill. In addition to the funding, there are 28 outside sections, policy shifts, statewide ADUs, ways that we can raise revenues, all trying to incentivize building the type of housing we need in communities throughout this entire Commonwealth.
You just said something pretty important, which is, in spite of all these initiatives and all the thinking you're doing about this, you can't subsidize your way out of this problem. Meaning, correct me if I'm wrong, ultimately the private sector is going to have to step up. How do you find the right balance between all the demands that are made, depending on where you are, on new development? In Boston, all sorts of environmental requirements, a number of affordable units that have to be part of any development. How do you balance that between the ability to make a profit and the willingness of private developers to take the risk?
Yeah, you're so right. And I think it's one of the challenges in a nearly 400-year-old state with older infrastructure, sometimes roads that were built for horse and buggy. How do you grow and grow smartly? We're investing in that technical assistance to help support communities think about where do they want the housing. Transit-oriented development near existing urban centers make a lot of sense in that regard. How do we make sure we're helping offset some of the costs when it comes to, I want to build, but I don't have the wastewater treatment center, or I don't have the adequate water supply. That's what Housing Works is for. It's included and incorporated. And how do we think about making density our friend? If we can add some density in some units, can more of it be affordable? Can more of it be resilient so that we're building housing that's going to be kind to our environment as we move forward? These are the efforts that we think, in partnership with communities, can really get off the dime. You can build housing that supports the workforce, that is resilient, that is meeting the goals of a community in terms of where they want to have density, supporting their coffee shops, working to have that vibrant, livable community that so many places are striving to try and succeed in.
Well, we're just about out of time. I want to steal another minute, though, because we have this situation with the influx of migrants, all sorts of temporary shelters popping up, I guess, which are half migrants, or roughly half migrants, half non-migrants.
Yep.
Are the residents of these shelters going to be given priority access to public housing?
If you are considered a homeless individual, you do rise to the top of the list. It's really going to depend on some of their status, where they would fit in terms of taking any kind of a priority. We do have a fair amount of Massachusetts residents that are on our emergency shelter, so we're working to try and ensure there's adequate housing there. But mostly, we want people to have a roadway to independence. How do we get work authorizations? How do we move people out of shelter, out of overflow sites as fast as we can? These folks are eager to work. We know we have jobs. We're trying to make those connections. We've been successful in many ways and continue to press on the federal government for the resources and the expedited work authorizations that we need.
But if they don't have any options when their time in the shelter runs out, a family member or whatever to go to, then they would jump the waiting list?
Only
for public
if they're
housing?
eligible. I mean, we have rules around eligibility, and some of that is tied to immigration status, and depending on the type of housing.
Okay.
And the second piece is like the waves of immigrants before them. People double up, they find ways to work multiple jobs, and we need housing for everyone at the end of this, and that's what really the Affordable Homes Act is about, ensuring that we have housing for the people who are already here, let alone those who might be in an influx of new immigrants who are arriving.
You got a big, complex job here. The future of our state hangs on it. Good luck.
Thanks. We're optimistic. We feel like when Massachusetts comes together as a team, there's no problem we can't solve. This one's a hard one, and it's been decades in the making, but we're committed to ensuring that we're moving the needle on housing, providing the resources, and building strong, healthy communities.
Thanks for being here.